Detective Tyson Caldwell strode down the fluorescent-lit corridor of the precinct, his boots echoing against the tiled floor. Years of solving cases had hardened him, not just his resolve but his reputation. He was known as the go-to man for high-stakes situations, a role that was both a badge of honor and an unspoken curse. As he approached his desk, his partner, Officer Claire Duncan, waved him over. Her eyes were alight with an intensity that Tyson recognized immediately. Something big was brewing. "We've got a lead on the Argon Syndicate," Claire said, handing him a folder stuffed with crime scene photos, surveillance screenshots, and handwritten notes. Tyson flipped through the documents, his brow furrowing. The Argon Syndicate was a notorious drug cartel that had eluded law enforcement for years, operating with military precision and brutal efficiency. Tyson had been chasing shadows for months, piecing together bits of intelligence that never quite aligned. "We've got a location?" he asked, his tone sharp. Claire nodded. "Abandoned warehouse on 4th and Main. Word is they're meeting tonight to finalize a major shipment. We're set to raid at 2,200 hours." Tyson grunted in approval. This was it, a chance to take down the syndicate's leadership in one fell swoop. But deep down, a gnawing unease crept into his mind. The Argon Syndicate didn't make mistakes. If they were meeting in a known location, it could be a trap. The team assembled at the staging area, clad in tactical gear and bristling with weapons. The air was thick with tension as Tyson briefed the officers. "Remember," he said, his voice steady, "we're not dealing with amateurs. These guys are armed and dangerous. Stick to your training, watch your corners, and no unnecessary risks." The convoy rolled out, headlights slicing through the darkness. Tyson and Claire rode together, the silence between them punctuated by the crackle of the police radio. "You've got that look again," Claire said, her eyes flicking to Tyson. "What look?" "The one that says you're expecting things to go sideways." Tyson smirked. "Always." The warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking mass of metal and concrete shrouded in shadow. The team spread out, moving with practiced precision as they surrounded the building. Tyson and Claire approached the main entrance, their weapons drawn. Claire signaled, and the breach team moved in, the door exploding inward with a deafening bang. The officers poured into the warehouse, their movements fluid as they swept the room. The scene inside was eerily quiet. Crates were stacked haphazardly, and the air smelled of rust and oil. But there was no sign of the syndicate members. Tyson's instincts screamed at him that something was wrong. "Clear," came a voice from the far side of the room. "Clear," echoed another. But before Tyson could issue a warning, the floor beneath their feet erupted. The blast sent him flying, pain lancing through his side as he hit the ground. His ears rang, and smoke filled the air, obscuring his vision. "Claire!" he shouted, coughing as he pushed himself up. Shapes moved in the haze, and gunfire erupted, the staccato bursts echoing off the walls. Through the chaos, Tyson spotted Claire pinned behind a toppled crate, exchanging fire with a masked assailant. He scrambled to her side, his sidearm barking as he laid down cover fire. "I knew it," he muttered, dragging Claire behind better cover. "It was a trap." "No kidding," Claire shot back, reloading her weapon. The next few minutes were a blur of gunfire and shouted commands. Tyson's world narrowed to the fight, his senses heightened as he moved with purpose. The attackers were well trained, their ambush planned to the smallest detail. Suddenly, an explosion tore through the far wall, and a black SUV barreled into the warehouse. Its doors flew open, and more assailants poured out, adding to the chaos. "We need to fall back," Claire shouted. "Not yet," Tyson growled. "We've got to cut off their escape." He spotted a catwalk running along the perimeter of the warehouse, leading to a control room. If they could disable the building's power, it might give them the edge they needed. "Cover me," he ordered, making a break for the stairs. Bullets pinged off the metal railing as he ascended, his heart pounding. The sudden blackout disoriented the attackers, and the officers seized the opportunity. Tyson returned to the fray, coordinating the counterattack with precision. One by one, the syndicate members were subdued, their plans unraveling before them. But as the dust settled, Tyson's unease grew. The warehouse had been heavily fortified, but their intel had suggested it was just a meeting spot. Why the overkill? His question was answered when they opened one of the crates. Instead of drugs or weapons, they found surveillance equipment, maps, and dossiers, all detailing police operations and personnel. This wasn't a cartel headquarters, Claire said, her voice tinged with disbelief. It was a staging ground. They knew we were coming. Tyson's blood ran cold. Someone within the department had tipped off the syndicate. This wasn't just a botched raid, it was treason. Over the following days, Tyson and Claire worked tirelessly to unravel the conspiracy. The evidence pointed to someone high up in the department, someone with access to sensitive information. But as they dug deeper, the trail grew murkier. Then, one night, Tyson received an anonymous message. A single address and the words, "Come alone." Against his better judgment, he went, his gut telling him this was the break they needed. The address led him to an abandoned church on the outskirts of town. Inside, a figure waited, their face obscured by the shadows. "You're brave showing up here," the figure said, their voice distorted. "Who are you?" Tyson demanded. "Someone who wants to see the syndicate burn. But you've been looking in the wrong place. The real boss isn't in the cartel. They're in your precinct." Before Tyson could ask more, the figure tossed a file at his feet and disappeared into the night. The contents of the file left him reeling. It contained photos, bank statements, and recorded conversations, all pointing to Captain Reiner, his superior and mentor, as the mole. The revelation hit Tyson like a sledgehammer, but he didn't have time to process it. Reiner had anticipated the raid, which meant he'd expect retaliation. Tyson needed a plan, and he needed one fast. With Claire's help, Tyson orchestrated an off-the-books operation, gathering a trusted team to confront Reiner. They tracked him to a secluded property outside the city, where he was meeting with the syndicate leaders. The confrontation was explosive, culminating in a high-speed chase and a deadly shootout. In the end, Tyson faced Reiner one-on-one, the betrayal cutting deeper than any wound. "You were like a son to me," Reiner said, his voice laced with regret. "You made your choices," Tyson replied, pulling the trigger. The fallout was massive, shaking the precinct to its core. But for Tyson, the victory felt hollow. He had taken down a monster, but the cost was steep. As he sat alone in the precinct's break room, nursing a cup of coffee, Claire joined him. "You did the right thing," she said quietly. "Did I?" he muttered. "The syndicate's broken, but they'll rebuild. And now we're the ones picking up the pieces." Claire placed a hand on his shoulder. "One piece at a time." Months later, Tyson stood at a small, makeshift memorial outside the precinct dedicated to officers who had lost their lives in the battle against corruption. A plaque with Claire's name gleamed in the sunlight, her sacrifice etched in bronze. Tyson's hand rested on the plaque as he whispered, "I'll keep fighting. For you, for everyone." As he turned to leave, the city's skyline stretched before him, filled with challenges yet to come. Tyson didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing. The fight for justice never truly ended, and he was ready to face it one step at a time. The day began like many others, with Tyson sitting in his dimly lit office, poring over files. These weren't just criminal cases, they were internal investigations. Tyson had taken a temporary reassignment to internal affairs, a position most officers despised. To him, it was the front line in the war against betrayal. "Tyson, you've got to see this," said Erica Singh, a young officer who had recently joined his team. Erica was sharp and relentless, with a knack for digging into financial records. She handed Tyson a dossier. "What am I looking at?" he asked, flipping it open. Tyson's jaw tightened. Norris and Green were part of the precinct's narcotics unit, a division that should have been on the front lines against crime, not in its pocket. Good work, Tyson said. Let's get warrants on their accounts and track who's paying them. Erica hesitated. There's more. I think these deposits might be linked to a broader scheme. Remember the Argon Syndicate's dossiers? Some of these shell companies match the ones in their files. Tyson's stomach churned. The Argon Syndicate wasn't just rebuilding. It had infiltrated law enforcement yet again. 2 weeks later, Tyson and Erica were in the back of an unmarked van parked outside a downtown nightclub. The club was owned by a corporation listed in the shell companies Erica had uncovered. It was suspected to be a hub for laundering bribe money and coordinating with corrupt officers. Norris is inside, Erica said, monitoring the feed from a tiny camera hidden in Tyson's jacket. Tyson had volunteered to go undercover, posing as a rogue officer interested in cutting his own deal. It was a risky move. One misstep could mean his cover, and his life would be blown. Inside the club, the music pulsed, and the air was thick with smoke. Tyson spotted Norris at a secluded booth, flanked by 2 men in tailored suits who screamed, "Syndicate muscle." Tyson approached, sliding into the booth with calculated ease. "Norris," he said, "heard you're working on something lucrative. Thought I'd get a piece of the action." Norris's eyes narrowed, but a smug grin crept across his face. "Caldwell, never pegged you for someone who'd crossed the line." "Lines are arbitrary," Tyson replied. "What matters is who's holding the power." The men exchanged glances. One of them leaned forward, his voice low. "You're bold, I'll give you that. But you don't just walk into a meeting like this and ask to join the club. There's a price." "Name it," Tyson said, his tone icy. The man slid a photo across the table. It was of Erica. "She's been poking around where she shouldn't. Handle her, and maybe we'll consider your application." Tyson's blood ran cold, but he didn't flinch. He slid the photo back. "Consider it done." Back in the van, Tyson relayed what had happened. Erica's face paled but hardened with determination. "They want me dead?" she said. "Good. That means we're close to something big." "We'll use this," Tyson said. "You'll go dark for a few days. Let them think I took care of it. Meanwhile, we'll use the time to gather hard evidence." The plan was set in motion. Erica disappeared, and Tyson fed disinformation to Norris and his associates, claiming he had eliminated her. Meanwhile, Tyson's team conducted round-the-clock surveillance on the nightclub and the shell companies. The break came late one night. Erica discovered an encrypted server in one of the shell companies that contained a roster of corrupt officers and payments. The evidence was irrefutable. "It's time," Tyson said, suiting up with his team. They coordinated with federal agents to raid the nightclub and arrest everyone involved. The operation was swift and brutal. The nightclub's basement housed not only cash and drugs but also detailed records of bribes and syndicate dealings. Norris, Green, and several high-ranking syndicate members were taken into custody. As Tyson cuffed Norris, the disgraced detective sneered. "You think you've won? There's always someone else to take my place." "Then I'll keep coming for them," Tyson replied. The raid sent shockwaves through the department. Several officers resigned, while others were arrested. The cleanup would take years, but it was a start. As the precinct buzzed back to life, Erica approached Tyson. "You kept your promise," she said. "Not yet," Tyson replied, "but I'm getting there." Later that evening, Tyson returned to the memorial outside the precinct. He traced his fingers along the plaque bearing the names of those who had fallen in the line of duty. His mind lingered on Claire's sacrifice and the countless others who had paid the ultimate price. "This is for you," he murmured. As he stood there, the city's skyline lit up before him. It was a reminder of the battles still ahead, but also of the lives he was determined to protect. Tyson took a deep breath and walked away, his steps steady, his resolve unshaken. The fight wasn't over, but he had learned one crucial truth. Justice wasn't an endpoint, it was a journey, and he was ready to see it through to the very end.